are back, baby. We're back. And welcome, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Open Floor podcast, where we're going to bring you real estate stories. And sometimes it'll be me solo. Sometimes it'll be me with a guest or a panel on. Just depends on what people's schedules are. As you know, real estate's a little hectic. Today, we have a blockbuster. All right, we're going to cover Compass buying anywhere real estate. Now, for the layperson, they do not care about whatever this is. For people that are in the real estate industry, particularly the residential space, this is a monumental shift, potentially. So to fill some of our audience in on who the hell is Anywhere Real Estate, that's the parent company for several brokerages that are very popular. Coldwell Banker, Century 21, Sotheby's International Real Estate, Corcoran Group. There's a couple other, Better Homes and Gardens, Zip Realty. There's some others. But if you work in real estate, or if you're a person that's planning to buy or sell a home, this is a big story. And we're going to unpack what the deal really is, why it's happening, what it means for agents, what it means for consumers, and how it could help kind of reshape real estate in the next few years, good or bad, and depending on if it goes through. It is merger and acquisition season, as some people are aware, so who knows. But here's the deal. It's an all-stock transaction valuing Anywhere Real Estate and its subsidiaries between $1.46 billion and $1.6 billion, with a combined enterprise value closer to 10 billion. And we'll get into what that means. This deal's probably not going to settle, if it settles, until the second half of next year in 2026, per the Compass investors. In plain English, for those of you who are like me, semi-special when it comes to financial stuff, Compass is going to acquire them in an all-stock transaction, which is roughly about a $13 share equivalent. So that's the money part of this. The people part of it is probably the more interesting conversation. If this deal is to come to fruition, there's going to be a combined platform projected to encompass around 340,000 real estate agents across 120 countries and territories, which would make this the largest residential brokerage footprint. Certainly America, probably have conversations about what it is in the world. So in terms of where the deal's at right now, it is board approved. It needs shareholder and regulatory sign off, and it's targeted to close at the end of 2026, at least sometime in the second half of 2026. This isn't a tuck-in, according to Barron, who's evaluating this deal. This is a tectonic plate shift, according to them. And I think they're right. If the DOJ doesn't step in and for whatever reason pauses acquisition, for Compass to acquire Anywhere and, have a combined company worth somewhere around $10 billion, that's a huge deal from a corporate perspective, but also a massive transition for a lot of agents that are on different technology, different systems, procedures and practices. I mean, there's going to have to be an incredible seismic shift, as if, the real estate industry hasn't been dealing with that for the last 2 years already. But in terms of why is this deal happening now? Why did these two companies that are rivals that really have been kind of at each other's throats at different conferences, why are they coming together now? And I think part of that is a market reality. There's elevated rates, thin inventory, and whenever you have those two things, it really squeezes brokers. So you start feeling the pinch from the inside because your clients want cuts on stuff because things are tight. Your agents are willing to make concessions that they otherwise wouldn't really be willing to make, or they start getting slower in business. And whenever business starts getting slower for salespeople, they're going to start looking around for other opportunities. So when you have that kind of market atmosphere, let's call it, and then you have, a clear shift in what the consumer's expectations are for real estate, and obviously with more visibility in social media and the advent of video and podcasts like ours, a lot more awareness is out there. There is some diversification from a Compass standpoint on this. So now Compass can add franchise royalties. They can add more title and escrow into their portfolio. They can add relocation services into their portfolio, which, these are things that they have not had before, that formerly Realty, I always want to call them Realty, it's Anywhere Real Estate does have. They have a lot of in-house title escrow services. A lot of brokers do, but they have mainstays that are in each branch or division. Same with relocation services. They've already got partnerships with different corporate and military relocation services around the globe. So it's kind of interesting for most people that, again, aren't in real estate every day and don't understand how it works. You mostly see articles based on commission, and you don't understand the inner workings of brokerage and how all that stuff works. And, the companies that are these Coldwell Bankers, your Sotheby's International Realties, your Century Twins, pick your gambit, even a Remax or Keller Williams. Most of those, almost all of those, pay a franchise fee to be able to use that name or to operate that brokerage under a parent company, which in this case would be Anywhere Real Estate. In order to do that, they do pay a franchise fee. Some of the broker owners of each little individual company will eat that for their agents. Some don't. And, either way can work. But they do pay anywhere from a 3 to 6% franchise fee to just operate, which is crazy. So, for Compass, this is a good thing because they get to eat some of that revenue, which is great. But at the same time, it's an interesting model, and I'm curious to see, all right, does everything fold in under this Compass umbrella, or does everybody maintain their current brand name and they just send the check to Compass each month? I'd be very curious to see how this plays out. The thesis of this whole deal is Compass's technology and Anywhere's global brands, particularly Sotheby's, which is a massive brand. Merging those two platforms, basically, or those two things, can bring an end-to-end engine that's really an unstoppable force in real estate. And there has been a lot of concern, like most industries, AI taking over with again, when things get tight, people start looking for different ways to evolve. I think that the need for human interaction and navigation of a certain thing, as long as you are well versed at it and experienced as an agent, that's invaluable. You can't get a computer to have tough conversations with you. You can reason within reason, but it's not going to be what I think tech people think it would be, where you can simply just, in 10 years, we're going to be buying houses just by signing documents. You'll look at everything online and everything will be good. And hunky-dory, who needs agents? It's not like that. And I don't think we're going to lose that people touch. And I think this move by Compass and Anywhere to merge, or Compass to buy them, whatever we're going to call it, it's essentially a merger. I think that puts more emphasis on the human capital that are involved in these, because these people, many of them, are really, really good at what they do. And to be able to have a platform like Compass's, which has, basically a one-stop shop for everything within a transaction, and the global recognition of the Anywhere brands, because Compass is really 10 years old, which is hard to believe when you see the quick rise that it's had. It's 10 years old, basically, to be able to come in to the industry and make the noise that it has. And now to be able to say it's potentially the largest brokerage in the world, that's a hell of a feat, man. It really is. It's pretty incredible. So there's obviously a lot of takes on this from the news, industry leaders, the Inman, and a couple of different outlets are framing this as a power move that can spur an arms race in tech and recruiting and distribution. with some people saying the deal is set to create a company worth an estimated $10 million. If you look at how Wall Street reacted to this news, the Anywhere stock spiked probably about 50%, 56% on the news. Compass fell about 12%. Seller wins now, buyer proves it later kind of thing. And I think Compass is still, this is 2 or 3 days post this news breaking by the time this episode gets released. So, that's pretty typical in these situations. Investors love the synergies. They also ask, how fast can this happen? How real is it? I think we got to expect some scrutiny on the integration costs, some debt, margin, and pathway. Frankly, it's just going to be incredibly difficult to pull this merger off cleanly. And I think people know that. So I'm very curious to see what the agent community reaction is on this. People in leadership have a different vantage point and thus, a different take on this acquisition. But Wall Street just said it's great for householders today, HOUS, Compass, COMP, has to show their work, which is fair. I think Compass has to prove, I think they've proven already to the market they're a player, they're here to stay and all that stuff, but they got to prove that they can make this merger work. This is going to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest acquisitions in our lifetime. So all eyes are on them over the next 9 months to kind of see how this thing unfolds. So what changes for agents and what doesn't? The public messaging so far for this says Anywhere's brands get to keep their identities and platforms while under the Compass umbrella. Come on now. I think we know where this is going to go. They'll have a little bit of time with them, but eventually fold it in. Because if you're Compass, you want those signs out there. Because those signs are your advertising. And the more of them people see, better off you'll be getting those people in your door. For Compass agents to be able to tap into relocation services, networks, and to franchise networks, Anywhere brand agents will likely see more tech tools over time. They're probably going to slow roll that out and just introduce things because speaking as a Compass agent myself, I can tell you it's quite a lot. All right. It's a lot. I mean, they are certainly the best in the business. I've never seen anybody that can do the tech stuff that they can do, but it is a fire hose. So for agents that are listening to this and have Compass in their sites or want more information on it, trust me, it's a ton of technology. It's incredibly useful. It's incredibly helpful to help agents be more efficient at their jobs. And hopefully make the consumer experience smoother and easier. And that's the goal of all these things, right? But I'll be curious to see how that rolls out over time. This is also a recruiting chessboard. So I feel bad for our recruiters out there. We're going to have a lot of indie brokers and, rival franchises. In this case, it would be your Berkshire Hathaways of the world, your Remaxes, your Keller Williams, EXPs, brokerages like that. I think they're spinning this to their advantage. Come here for that boutique agility, versus join that super platform, which, there's an argument for that as well, to each their own. But this is really going to be hard to compete with moving forward, projecting down the line. So there's a pull quote here from realestatenews.com, creating the world's largest brokerage, around 340,000 professionals in over 120 countries. If your inbox suddenly has 3 "we should talk" subject lines, yeah, that tracks. All right, that's their little snippet. Hopefully you like that. Now, consumers, do you care? Are you going to feel this? It has one-stop shop potential where you can have your listing or sale, have all the marketing services, all the title and escrow services, any relocation services under one roof. It can tighten timelines, reduce friction. Theoretically, on paper, it could be awesome. So that's the goal anyways when you do something like this. There is going to be a pretty big emphasis, even more so, on private exclusives. So for our audience that isn't familiar with private exclusive, we've touched on it on other pods and posts and things like that in the past. But when you have a listing, signed listing agreement, but you're not ready to go into the MLS. Or let's say you're doing some fine tuning on the house, decluttering, you're getting some work done on the place prior to, but you're open to showings. You sign something called a private exclusive listing, where your property is not out there for the whole entire internet to see, but it's available. There's a big debate in the agent community. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? And I think there's cases for both. It's convenient for in-network clients, but the industry is already up in arms about private exclusive listings because Compass has kind of started that. And they started it in the New York and DC markets, branching out into LA and those territories over out west. And it took off, and it's really gotten really popular in particular over the last year because there's been a big push, from Compass to say, listen, we shouldn't be subject as a broker charged with selling a product by sticking it in the same storefront every single time. We should be able to put that wherever our client wants us to. So if our client doesn't want us to put it in that particular storefront, then we're going to put it wherever they tell us we're allowed to put it. And that upsets a lot of people that feel like they don't get an opportunity on something because they didn't get a chance to see it, because either their agent wasn't in the loop on it, which is common, or they just didn't have visibility on it. And so I get that side of it too, where it's like, no, I want to be able to see everything that's out there as a consumer who's in the market to buy stuff, because I'm going to be PO'd if I don't get something that I could have really wanted. But them's the breaks, right? That's just how it goes. And you can't control how you operate as a broker within the law, within the rules that are set forth. You can control your seller to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, it is their asset and their decision. All we are doing as an agent is helping them offload that and find somebody that's willing to buy it under the terms that we think, based on our experience, are agreeable and everybody can be happy with. This private exclusive debate is not going to go away. It's not. It's going to have a microscope on it, particularly with this news drop in the last couple of days. It's going to be even more under the microscope. We have MLS services fining brokers for talking about things or, including compensation in different packages. We have, agents potentially tattletaling on people that have a private exclusive, but maybe it's not registered with the MLS yet as a private exclusive because we haven't gotten around to it. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to operate in real estate, operate in business. At the end of the day, your job is to do the best thing that you can for your client. You're a fiduciary, just like a financial advisor or anybody else, just a lot less schooling than those guys had to do. Or gals. So it's just something that we're going to continue talking about it here. There's cases on both sides, like I said, but that's a larger discussion that I think we're going to have more time on in the future. We're going to keep covering it because it's going to keep popping up in the news and in conversations about housing. One other thing this deal does with consolidation, it can bring efficiency and it can bring less fee competition, potentially. As a consumer, always shop your rates, always negotiate for your commission that you're willing to pay your agent that you're hiring to sell your asset. The landscape's going to evolve. It's going to keep evolving, but this is typically, in most cases, their biggest asset. We've heard it 1,000 times before. They require somebody that is both competent and looking out for their best interest in the best way possible. That's what you sign when you sign a listing agreement. Then when you sign that brokerage relationship, that's an agent's job. So with Compass and the Anywhere companies coming together and consolidating, it will eventually bring efficiency. It might bring less fee competition, but that's totally dependent on what the economic factors are at the time that this actually comes to fruition. We just simply don't know. So we'll stay tuned on that. The best cases, we're going to have smoother closings. Worst cases, fewer doors open unless you're in that Compass network. But you know what? At the end of the day, having a relationship with your agent is important. Make sure that they are competent. Make sure that they are both good at what they do, but you also got to enjoy them. because you don't want to pick up the phone with somebody that you don't like talking to at all. It's just going to make it a miserable time. What's the road ahead look like after this? Shareholder votes and antitrust review is coming up ahead. I'm really curious to see what Pam Bondi, we'll see how long she's in that position at DOJ, but I want to see what DOJ does if they step in on this and, target it as a potential monopoly, because it could be seen as that. I think market share is actually going to be around 25% of the total market, which is certainly not a monopoly by definition, but it's a huge move. Now, there are some integration risks here with tech unification and culture fit. Compass is very much a startup style. And then you have legacy franchises that have been around this ecosystem in real estate for a long time. So there's going to be a lot of back office overlaps. There's going to be some debt service. There's going to be things on this that have ripple effects that we're just not going to know for, probably years down the line. But moving forward, I'm going to expect recruiting battles over this. I think people are going to start to look around just because there's uncertainty. I think there's going to be potentially more partner negotiations. Maybe other franchises begin to have discussions about merging together. And if regulators pass this and they let it through, incredible. We're going to run with it and we're going to see what happens with it. That they're going to be probing over this takeover for a while. That's how it's going to go. It's a big deal. So we're curious to see how it shakes out. So anyways, the news of the day, the news of the week, and probably the news for the rest of the year is Compass is buying Anywhere Real Estate, y'all. And we'll have updates on this story moving forward. Trust me. We got a lot of different takes on this, so we can spin off into different episodes and stuff. But it's huge news. So I had to break it. And so, as a listener and somebody that, is loosely following this, just keep an eye out for headlines. See if when you're driving around and stuff, how does that brand autonomy persist with those different groups in Anywhere Real Estate? How's it look on Compass? Just look out for the signage. Watch for listing distribution policies. So we're going to have more MLS, more private listings. Look for things that you're going to be seeing in the market. That's just, it's little stuff like this behind the scenes. It's kind of, it doesn't make sense right now for the general public. It's, it is what it is. Who cares? That's most of their take on it. But again, for the people in the industry that know this every day, this is massive. And, for brokers and agents, honestly, I would not change anything about this. This should not change anything about how you're doing business. You should be doubling down on local expertise and negotiation craft. Giants can't outlocal you no matter how big they get. Whatever stack you're using, whether you're already with Compass, whether you're with another franchise, just audit your CRM. Make sure that you have your listing prep stuff in there. Make sure you have your offer prep, your close workflow, your speed and clarity will win in anything. So I wouldn't let it freak you out. If you are an organized agent, you're on your shit, it does not matter where you work. It does not. Certainly a broker can help you do your job better by giving you more tools, but regardless, your worth is in cross-brand relationships and building referrals, regardless of what flag you're flying. So you're never boxed out by some walled garden. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you're only focused on you and your people. So for buyers and sellers out there, interview multiple agents, ask direct questions about listing exposure, talk about MLS versus private exclusives, talk about, title and mortgage rates and compare those, even if they're bundled in, in a thin inventory world, prep early, get pre-underwritten and rely on hyper-local comps, not national headlines. The news is awesome. I like listening to it. Stuff like this is fun. It's goodish news. Is this the dawn of a more integrated, tech-powered real estate experience? Or, like some fear, is it the beginning? Fewer open doors unless you carry the right business card. I don't think it's that. It's probably maybe a little of both. Who knows? But here's what I do know. The next 12 to 18 months is going to be really, really interesting. And I'm curious to see how this unfolds over the next couple of months in particular as it starts getting a little bit more fine-tuned. The pros of it, how are you gaming this out? Consumers, agents out there, I am curious on what your take is. Feel free to comment, DM me, whatever. General public, consumers out there, does a super broker make you feel safer or more skeptical? I'm curious what your take is. Drop me a DM, comment on posts. We'll do a web post on this as well. Send a voice memo, whatever, man. We'll feature you on here. But I'm curious what your takes are on this. So that's going to wrap it up. This is our open floor episode. We actually have a couple of episodes coming out that'll either be this weekend or early next week, but we're rolling out a new series of podcasts, Stories of the Seventh State. We're going to highlight a lot of cool things that have happened in Maryland, whether they're celebrities, major historical events, fun stories. I love this state, and I just thought it would be really cool to highlight some of the things that makes Maryland. So we're going to unroll, a series of stories on that podcast. We should have another night shift coming out soon. I'm not sure what movie we're going to cover, but it is coming up on spooky season. So stay tuned. All right, y'all. That's it for me. Open floor is wrapped. We'll see you next time. House Cats out.